Why is this man always wearing a raincoat, even though it never rains? Well, that's one of three questions I'm going to be asking about The Conversation on the Catholic Film Club this month. And I hope you join us in 2 weeks while we do a deep dive into this film with a special guest. In the meantime, I want to give you some thoughts and reflections on this masterpiece, I think, by Francis Ford Coppola. So first, what is The Conversation? The Conversation is a paranoid thriller Francis Ford Coppola made right in between the two Godfathers. It features an astonishing performance from Gene Hackman, a couple years off of his Oscar win from The French Connection, and a very different character. The thing about Gene Hackman that you always think about is power and brute force. But in this one, he almost disappears into the background as this character. And that's what The Conversation is all about. It's a character study of a surveillance man named Harry Caul who leads a very private life. And yet his whole job is to probe into other people's lives. He's listening very carefully. These are the people that he's been listening to.
Oh, God.
Over and over again.
Who started this conversation anyhow?
What a stupid conversation.
Stan, please, I'm trying to work.
I can't see why a couple of questions about what the hell's going on can get you so out of joint. It's curiosity. Did you ever hear of that? It's just goddamn human nature.
Listen, if there's one surefire rule that I have learned in this business is that I don't know anything about human nature. I don't know anything about curiosity. That's not part of what I do. This is my business. And when I'm...
He's a man that listens. He's a man that watches.
What do you see? Here's your money, $15,000 cash.
But who's watching over him? Well, the easy answer to that question is Francis Ford Coppola, one of the undisputed greatest filmmakers who ever lived, Megalopolis notwithstanding. It's in many ways his most subdued film, and I think in many ways it's his most personal movie. Francis Ford Coppola has a deep fascination with technology and always has.
They used to call you science.
Yes.
Why was that?
Well, I was a boy scientist. I loved more than anything technology and learning about the lives of the scientists. And I always had in my life, I do now, a little shop where I would build things and try to make inventions. And ultimately I was always involved in the radio club or the science club.
Francis Ford Coppola is a filmmaker who starts from the outside in. He's very fascinated with externals.
Come over here, kid, learn something.
Whether that's the Sicilian culture of The Godfather, whether it's the magic lantern in-camera effects of Bram Stoker's Dracula. He loves to start with an environment like the world of surveillance, and use that as a way to dive into the inner lives of his characters. And that's exactly what he does with Harry Caul. And I'll say incidentally that just putting this video together has made me appreciate how much Coppola has to say about filmmaking in The Conversation. You know, I'm just poring over this footage, trying to analyze this character and look closer. And I don't know if I'm actually getting any closer to what this guy is about. And that's what Harry Caul is dealing with, in this movie.
And after a while, I realized that, in a sense, I was an eavesdropper because I was intruding on the life of this Harry Caul, this professional eavesdropper.
I became, in my college career, kind of interested in directing, mainly because I was always up on a ladder hanging a light and watching the professor direct the actors. And after a while, I got the confidence that I could do it, and I started to do that.
Now, this position that he's talking about, this elevated position, looking over people, I find that fascinating because that is the elevated position that begins the conversation. It gives us a different perspective. Suddenly, normal everyday people cast long, dark shadows. And I think that this perspective betrays another answer to who's telling the story, who's watching over Harry Caul. I don't think it's off base to think that this movie is told from a divine perspective. I think the eye of God is ever present in the conversation. And that doesn't come out of nowhere. because God is at the center of Harry Caul's life. He is a devout Catholic. Wrestling with sin is at the center of his struggle and why he cares so deeply about this conversation in a park.
This happened to me before. People were hurt because of my work. I'm afraid it could happen again, and I was in no way responsible. I'm not responsible.
It's also apt to think about this from a divine perspective because Harry Caul has a bit of a God complex, actually.
And happy birthday!
He is very protective of his domain, and he treats his life almost like the Garden of Eden.
Mr. Evangelista, how'd you know it was my birthday? Nah, I don't remember telling you.
Sometimes you come over here and you don't tell me. You think you're gonna catch me at something. Because something special happened between us on your birthday. Like, telling me about yourself.
And you can see how he gets that God complex, because the nature of what he does is to capture moments in time and own them.
Walking around in circles.
And look at them over and over again in a way that you do not in normal life. It makes me think that he sees this couple walking in the park. They kind of take on an Adam and Eve quality.
Oh, look, that's terrible.
He's not hurting anyone.
Neither are we. Every time I see one of those old guys, I always think the same thing.
What do you think?
Yeah, what do you think?
I always think that he was once some.
Okay, so I've thrown out a lot of ideas out there for you to think about if you would like to watch the conversation or rewatch it, and join us for our discussion in a couple of weeks. I'm Michael Coy. This is the Catholic Film Club, brought to you by the Center for Catholic Media at Benedictine College in Atchison, Kansas. And I will leave you with our final question that we'll be asking about the conversation. Why does Harry Caul love jazz?